Hello everybody, this is Chris Bird or MonkeyDude1313 and this is going to be an in-depth review of the MoYu WeiLong WR M. This cube came out very recently, a little over 10 days ago, and it is a ridgeless version of the very popular GTS3M. The cube comes in at $39 from both SpeedCubeShop and Cubicle, and let's get right in to the review of the packaging. It comes in a white box here with a nice gold image on here. It says WRM 3.47S. The 3.47 I think is alluding to the world record, and without ridges here is strikingly close to the word world record. So I wonder if that was an accident or maybe just a very unique coincidence. So opening up the box here, we see that there is a cube stand, and the cube would come in that cube stand, but I've of course taken it out. And it comes with an accessories box here. This accessories box, which I will take out and show you in a second, actually doubles as a cube carrying box, which is quite nice and very unique for a puzzle like this. Usually they don't come in a carrying case like that. Sometimes they'll come in a cloth bag, but a case like this is actually really nice. So you can see back here behind the stand that there are actually a few cards as well. These cards, there's a manual and some cards for different cubers and people. Very nice stuff, but really not the main attraction here. The cube stand itself doubles as a carrying case, and this is very standard for all MoYu products. So you just take off the lid, set it up, and now you've got a nice little cube stand like that. Quite nice if you want to show off your puzzles. This can even hold ginormous puzzles. So as long as it's got a square corner on it, you can show a puzzle on this stand. Once again, though, that's not very interesting. What is interesting is this accessories box. In this accessories box, we have two spacers, which will allow you to make sure that you have set the correct screw depth into the core when you're reassembling it. It includes a small screwdriver here, Phillips head screwdriver. I found the screwdriver is difficult to use, but it is good to have if you're traveling. It also works as a handy spacer for fitting the cube into this box. We have here a brand new core, should your other one snap, and then we have an entire set of 6 new springs and the locking adjustment discs here, which is a very popular feature of some of these MoYu cubes. We also have replacement magnets here that I believe are the exact same strength, because the magnets are glued into the puzzle and they wouldn't want to make it something that you replace regularly. And then here we have a little tensioning tool, which I will show you how that works a little bit later. Alright, so that's the accessories box, and we'll be touching on that in just a little bit again, because I'm going to start taking apart this cube and show you what's up. So here we have the new WRM. The sticker shades are actually quite nice, however, they are, as you can tell here, translucent on some of them. Since they're not fully opaque, you can see through them a little bit, which means that on faces that have a very bright color on top, you can then see the light through the piece, and you can even see where the magnets are in these two pieces here. It doesn't really, you can't tell at all on faces like the blue face and the red face where they meet, because those shades are so dark, light doesn't really get through. But where it is the biggest offender, and what bothers me the most, is this. As you can see, when light goes through the orange side, it puts off a little orange glow in the back of the yellow piece, which means that it's very easy, at least for my eyes, to swap these two colors. And so of course it depends on your lighting arrangement and where you cube, and depending on the place where you're competing at, you might not be able to tell those shades different if you're in the wrong angle of light. Luckily, it doesn't really matter much for other colors because they're so different, but I found especially for yellow-orange, it is sometimes very difficult, and I put this edge in incorrectly sometimes when I'm doing green or blue cross, which is definitely not something that you want to catch on camera or in a competition. The other two colors that might actually have this problem would be yellow and white, but since they're across, you can't do that at all. Since the pieces are translucent, also you can see here the very dark color here. That's because the blue tensioning adjustment ring here is almost pressing up right against the inside of the piece, and since it's not completely opaque, you can see straight through it. So let's compare that to the color of the GAN. if we look at the GAN 356X here on the left, we can see that the shades are very neon on the 356 and they're a little bit lighter on the WeiLong WR M. I prefer the GAN 356X color scheme by miles to this one. Of course, the color scheme isn't something that's going to make or break the cube for most people, but for my personal preference, if I had to choose, I'd go with the GAN 356X. Let's go through and do a color comparison of each of the shades so that you guys who own the GAN 356X or a similar GAN product will know what to expect. A yellow face, orange face, you can see how this is quite a bit brighter than this one. The white face, the red face, blue face, eerily similar, although this one's a tiny bit darker, and the green face, which is where I see almost 100% of the difference between these two color schemes. In this case, the green on the WRM is quite a bit, I want to say duller or maybe more pale than the green on this. And of course that's up to preference, and it doesn't make a big difference while solving, but I like the color scheme on the left. But there's a little bit of a comparison for you. Another thing of note to compare is that the pieces are full colored plastic on the outside, which means that when you're turning these pieces, you can see both colors. Puzzles like the GAN 356X have black, some of them have white, and a lot of cubes just have colored caps on a clear white-ish base, which can sometimes lead to a lot of color bleed. But on this one particularly, the edges and then the corners as well have separated full colored plastic, which I think is very, very good. I really like that touch, and it feels very professional, and I like the look of that quite a bit more. However, the GAN 356X also looks quite nice because of its solid black, but if it were white or any other color, that would be a negative for the puzzle in my opinion. So let's open up the puzzle here. First we'll pop off a center cap. Here is what the center cap looks like. It's got some aligning holes in there, and those holes line up with the little indents here. You can tell under or around this tensioning ring that this will lock in so that you can't accidentally put it in sideways. You can only put it in straight, and that is very nice for when you're reassembling the puzzle. Got a standard Phillips head screw, got the blue MoYu adjustment ring, and then that's what the center cap looks like. Moving on. So as you can see here, what I was talking about is the piece is two colors of plastic on the outside, but on the inside it's like a translucent white rail. You can tell that's the same with the corner piece as well. The stock here, translucent white, but full three-color plastic on the piece itself. I find that very, very attractive. So here's how the two pieces go together, and of course since it's a magnetic puzzle, they stay together. The magnet strength feels between the strongest and second strongest magnets on the 356X. So that for comparison, you're getting a relatively strong pull or click when you're doing each of your turns, but it is definitely not enough to make it difficult to turn the puzzle. I know that some people really don't prefer super strong magnets, and so this might be the perfect magnets for you. So that's how they line up. You can tell that the rails in each of these pieces have very little room in there, and so that's just enough room for you to put in some angstrom lube or some other rail lube that you might want to use. Alright, let's take a few more pieces out of this puzzle. Now with that piece out, we can see the core, we can see the screws, and we can see these center pieces with a little bit of a skirt on them. This skirt seems to be purely for functionality because it lines up with the edge pieces here, holds the edge pieces in by pushing down on the bases here, and also it has a secret property. That secret property is when you have finished assembling the pieces and you pull the two opposite edges apart like this, you can check to see if your tensioning is pretty close. So on the left here you can see that my green side is tighter than my blue side. And you can tell that because there's a tiny bit of a gap between the left edge of this piece when I'm pulling it out and the skirt. That is not, of course, a definitive way of checking tension, but it is actually quite a neat way of seeing if you're in the right ballpark. So let's take a few more pieces out, and then I can show you how the spacer bar works. Alright, with one layer off, we can see that we have a free spinning center cap, and something about these center caps that's unique is that if there's no edges holding it up, we are now actually using the friction of this center cap in the puzzle to hold on the centerpiece instead of the spring popping it out. So if we just push very little pressure on this green center pops right off because of all the tension that spring is under. Something interesting to note. With the longer springs, which I have currently installed and I like quite a bit more, you can tell that the centerpiece goes all the way down and just rotates directly against the core there. There is absolutely no room. Alright, so once you have all the pieces out, you can see how much these springs like to push in and really tighten together on the core. You can take this spacer tool here, pull out on one of the center caps, and slide this in there. Then what you need to do is tilt the center caps so that you see this, the flat face of each of the center caps is pushing against the piece itself. And by inserting this thing right here, you can see both how many springs, how many threads on each of the screws you can see visibly. And also, you can tell that you have tightened them enough that they are sitting very firmly against this, but that they're not too tight that you can't fit this piece in. There's a second bar that if you want to, you can put in as well, and what it will do is will even out the caps so you can make even more sure that they're correct. However, I found that it works perfectly well both ways. So, let's get this cube back together. Alright, now that we've got the cube assembled, let's take a look at the corner cutting. So, backwards corner cutting can go pretty much piece to piece, which is absolutely fantastic for a puzzle like this. If you want to go all the way here, line to line, sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. Very unexpected results in that territory. However, if you're here and you're trying to do an R prime, absolutely going to get it. Similarly, forward corner cutting, very easy as well. Line to line is easy. Even farther than that is also quite easy. You can turn pretty much half the puzzle and still get the corner cutting that you're looking for. This is mostly due to the longer springs in the puzzle. I found that the corner cutting on the shorter springs, even at both the tightest and loosest settings, could not match this level of corner cutting. And I believe that's because there's a lot more flex in these center caps because of the longer springs, and therefore the cube is more willing to pull itself out in order to make these corner cuts happen. As a result, these corner cuts make the puzzle a dream to use. It feels still quick and still smooth while allowing you to do pretty much all the turns you want, and it will only lock up while you're trying to get used to the puzzle. Once you're used to it, you're still going to be able to do the fantastic corner cutting that you expect. So, here in the box, we can see that we have some extra springs. I believe there's no difference on these blue caps than on the other set, but we have this spring right here. As you can see, if it'll ever focus, that this spring is very short. Since the cube is currently assembled, I can't show you, but the other spring goes quite a bit farther down. Not quite twice as long, but probably an extra 50% at least. Then inside of each of these little blue caps here, there's a washer at the bottom to make sure that the lubricant you use has metal-to-metal contact so that you don't get a lot of spring noise. However, that is something that is very important to mention. When I first got this puzzle, there was a lot of spring noise. There was no lubricant that came on it from the factory, which is nice because that means I got to choose what lubricants I put on, but it meant that the spring noise was very, very noticeable. Even though the metal washers in there are really nice for metal-to-metal contact on the spring, meaning the spring is not going to be digging into the plastic piece and potentially causing friction, what that did mean is that the spring noise was very apparent on all 6 sides. Some sides were worse than others, but every single side had spring noise. So use Cubicle Black or Cosmic Vortex and you'll be good to go. I put a few drops of Galaxy in there just to soften it up, to quiet it up a bit while I was solving, because I didn't have either of the other too easily accessible, and that worked quite nicely. I just dropped 2 drops into each of the spring wells, and it was good to go. However, I do recommend using one of the two, Cubicle Black or Cosmic Vortex, on the cube of this puzzle. It's very important. Now we're going to jump into the difference between the two springs. The shorter springs will create a very, very fast cube. It will not be able to corner cut as well as the longer springs, and it will make the pieces seemingly fly around the cube much faster. And what I mean by that is there will be less force required from your finger to push the layer. That is very nice, and some people really, really prefer that, but for me, not a huge fan. Even on the tightest setting of the little disc under the center cap, I was unable to enjoy the cube to its fullest potential. Due to how I felt that way, my initial impression of the puzzle was that there's no way this is going to kill the 356X. However, that opinion changed dramatically when I put in the longer springs. The longer springs completely transformed the puzzle for me. Night and day, the longer springs absolutely make for a better solving experience. Not only does it tighten up the cube, so it doesn't really feel like the layers are flying around as much and you don't feel out of control. What it also does is add for a lot of looseness in the springs, meaning that when you want to corner cut, you have extra spring there to compress so that you can actually make big corner cuts, and it's fantastic. For me personally, the shorter springs were only bearable when they were at their tightest setting, and even then, it did not feel that great to me. For the longer springs, I have them at their loosest setting, and I find that that is perfect. When I get to the tightest setting on them, I find that it is now restricting movement of the puzzle too much. I did put some D&M 37 in there, and I did a little bit of a mix with Lunar from SpeedCubeShop, and I found that on the tightest settings, I do not enjoy the puzzle at all. But on the loosest settings, it feels very natural. It is a much closer solving experience to the GAN 356X and other modern cubes. Overall, I find this puzzle absolutely amazing. And after around 200 or so solves, I cannot yet say whether this is going to be my main or the GAN 356X is. However, I think the 356X is going to stay there because of the sticker shades, because the puzzle is a little bit heavier, and because there's no bleed through on the colors on each of the faces. The WRM feels lighter than the GAN 356X. That doesn't feel natural to me when I'm solving. So thank you guys for watching this review. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys learned a lot about this puzzle. This is a fantastic puzzle, and you will absolutely not be upset when you receive this puzzle. I do recommend immediately switching to the longer springs and never looking back. Don't bother with the shorter ones. It feels like an 8-year-old Diansheng cube. The ones with painted stickers on them, it's that loose. Ridiculous. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out my Facebook channel. Link is in the description if you want to shoot spitballs at me. You can also just message me if you want. We can have a good time, chat about stuff, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next review video.